Somebody's got to do it, man, and it's going to be me. So today I'm going to do this video on how we should vote in the midterm elections, especially for Christians, and the reasons why. I believe that the country is headed in the wrong direction and that we can rewrite it right now. The last election was tragic, simply because people didn't want Biden in office. They just wanted someone other than Trump. Yet, I don't think a lot of people really considered the long-term implications of that decision. And I get it. Trump had serious character flaws. If he just kept his mouth shut about half the times, he would probably still be president right now. But I think by now, hopefully people realized that under Biden, things have become much, much worse. And, do not let how much you hate Trump blind you from seeing this reality. Don't let your hate for one person go into the midterm elections, because it's going to stop you from seeing the reality of this country right now. Amos says this in chapter 5, verse 19, "It'll be as though a man fled from a lion only to meet a bear." And I feel like that's beautifully describes the situation that we're in right now. You would think that Biden would tread lightly because people didn't really want him. Yet, he got into office and pushed the most radical, far-left agenda in decades. Things in America have become much, much worse. And I'm going to present my case why a Democrat shouldn't have the White House for at least 2 terms and possibly 3. This country is a disaster right now. And even if you are a Democrat, please, please wake up and see that you need to vote Republican all across the board in this election. Christians shouldn't definitely be voting Republican, since they more align with biblical values. I know that's a tough statement, but it's becoming more and more true. I did a whole video of this on my channel. If you want to go back, you can check that out. I'll leave it in the description. More and more, it's just becoming increasingly impossible to vote Democrat and still be a spirit-filled Christian at the same time. But before I get started, let me just settle something real quick. The rise of Christian nationalism. And just because I love my country and because I love God, and I think it's common sense dictates that you should be prideful of the country that you live in. Although I do admit that there are some things in this country's past that haven't been good. But I love my country and I love God. And that doesn't mean I'm a white nationalist. That doesn't mean I'm racist. That doesn't mean that I want to overthrow the government. It means that I'm a Christian and I love my country. I vote for people who will pass righteous legislation as closely as possible. Most of the time, politicians are not going to be your pastor. We don't live in an ideal world. So, the person that you vote for president, they're not going to be like your pastor. But I think that Christians should influence politics. But we're not, as Christians, supposed to take over politics and impose our will on everyone else. I just wanted to settle that. Jesus said point blank, as he was talking to Pilate, "My kingdom is not of this world." Jesus wasn't trying to start up a kingdom. And so I think, so I just wanted to settle that. So moving on. So in the news lately, you see the richest person in America, Elon Musk, who isn't even a conservative, basically is now going to be voting Republican. And say what you want, but whenever the richest person in the world speaks, we should take note. We should listen. And he basically just described it as the left has gone too far left. And basically that's caused him to vote Republican. Come on, this just happened in the last few years. Elon Musk voted Democrat and would have considered himself a Democrat in the past. Now he's voting Republican. Tulsi Gabbard announced that she's leaving the Democratic Party because she feels like they're destroying the country. They've become so radical in their agenda that she can no longer align with the party. Take note when big figures like Tulsi Gabbard, who I'm sure will possibly become either vice president or president one day, or have a high office, when she leaves a party, take note. take some notes there, because I love her. I consider her a lot like myself. I don't want to try to lean left or right. I want to make sure that that I'm voting for people that, produce common sense policies. And so basically, I try not to consider myself left or right, but to take issues one by one and vote that way. But I find that more often than not, that means voting conservative. So let me just point out this headline. If you only just see one thing in this video, check out this headline right here. Basically, the average American is going to lose $34,000 under Biden. If that's not a reason to just change and reach across the aisle and vote Republican, I don't know what else is. If that doesn't get your attention, if nothing else gets your attention, let that get your attention. According to the polls, the number one thing on voters' minds right now is economic concerns, right? The economy is a disaster right now, and I'm going to explain point by point why we have to vote Republican in the next election. This is on President Biden 100%. So the number one reason why we got to vote him out of office and vote all Democrats, especially radical liberals, out of office is because of the several spending bills that they passed in the last couple of years that will put our children's children in debt. You got the American Rescue Plan, $2 trillion. You got the Consolidated Act, $2.3 trillion. You got the Omnibus Bill, $1.5 billion. You got the Infrastructure Bill, $1 trillion. This spending is beyond anything we've ever seen. These bills cashed into the economy when we needed, but they pumped so much cash, so much free money, that it caused a recession. Okay? And this is like having your credit card have $10,000 on your balance, and you haven't paid your bill in months, but you continue to just charge and use it and use it and use it. This doesn't pass the common sense test. We're not supposed to rely on the government. We're supposed to rely on God. They're not supposed to do everything for us. They can do some things for us, but they're not to do everything. America was based on being a free country, and the more and more government gets involved, the less and less freedom we have. And so number one was the ridiculous spending bills for a total of trillions and trillions of dollars. It's just it's just ridiculous. Number two, America is in a recession. If you have any type of common sense right now, you would see that America is in a recession. Now, don't trust me or anybody else, your friend Joey or John, but 90% of CEOs, check this clip out, say that we are in a recession and one is coming or one is coming. Okay, so make note in that when the smartest people that are running the business in the world say we're in a recession, then we're in a recession. The Biden White House can't admit this, but they also can't admit many things. And actually, they don't even know if Joe doesn't even know if he's running for president again in 2024. You can't even make this stuff up. Number three is the stock market is down. The 401ks are down extremely. So if you were looking to retire, you're not going to be able to retire. See, look at this slide right here at 3 stocks that I own. You got to be kidding me when you look at these figures. It's absolutely atrocious. And it is absolutely because of the policies that have been been implemented by Biden and the Democrats that aren't good for business. And when businesses are really suffering, then everything else negative is going to follow. So the stock market is down. Number 3. Number 4, we have the highest inflation in 40 years. Just ask Google, right? They say, well, is inflation the worst in 40 years? I'll give you their answer. U.S. prices for just about everything, cars and gasoline, food and clothing, are rising at the fastest pace in decades. Hello. Come on. Overall consumption prices rose to 2021 at the fastest pace in 40 years, meaning this is the worst inflation experienced by anyone not on the cusp of retirement or older. Okay, so there you go. Inflation is out of control. I think it's at around 9%. Number 5, record high gas prices. This was all while Americans were suffering. This was all in the name of pushing the electric car agenda. Was this the right time to really push that? When Americans were already suffering so much, to shove this down our throats, was this really the time? But Democrats didn't care. They were going to make the change, and it didn't matter that we were in a recession, that the stock market was down, that businesses were suffering, individuals were suffering. They pushed this agenda anyway. And it was one of the most selfish things done for politics in many years. Gas was $2 with the former president, and it almost doubled and tripled in some cases. This is just common sense type stuff here, people. Common sense. Just the gas price going up to $5-6 a gallon. Come on, they gotta go. The Democrats gotta go. Number 6, the economy was the number one thing on voters' minds, but what was number 1, 2? What was number 2? Well, this is the $64,000 question. Soaring crime rate. Come on. Crime is out of control. Just look at this article right here that says that Democrats run the top 27 out of the 30 on the top murder rate cities. Okay? So you do the math. It's over 90%. Okay? So Democrats are creating this crime process. They're creating this crisis. I live in New York City, and things haven't been this bad since the 1980s when New York was the murder capital of the world, and things were just so out of control. I even seen a shooting in broad daylight in the middle of the daytime. I seen robbings in broad daylight. I see homelessness all over the place. Setting up encampments of tents, drug addicts all over. I was in Times Square, and a guy was walking in the middle of the day with a needle in his arm, walking down the block. Several people doing drugs on the floor, sitting in front of high-rise buildings. And, man, I have compassion for these people, but, they shouldn't be out in the streets. You got crime in the subways and buses in New York City. This is out of control. Innocent bystanders getting assaulted, getting beat up. Violent crimes, too, pushing people onto the tracks. There have been murders. And this is all due to weak-on-crime policies of the Democrats and the liberal district attorneys that are being voted in. We stopped holding criminals accountable, and boy, have we paid. The inmates are now running the asylum. Matthew 24:12 says this, because lawlessness is increased, the love of most people would grow cold. So lawlessness is one of the main characters of the end times. And how do you get to lawlessness? Well, you don't enforce the law anymore. You let criminals off. You get soft on crime. We shouldn't promote politicians who promote lawlessness. We should vote them out of office immediately. We have to hold people accountable who commit crimes. It's just a standard fact, and it doesn't matter what the color of their skin is. If you commit crimes, you should go to jail and you should pay the time. Okay? Especially in the case of multiple offenders. In New York City, they're not holding people according to the cash bail. So if it doesn't matter, they could be already on the hook for a violent crime, and then they post them out on no bail, and they're out on the streets, even though they're awaiting trial for a violent crime. And some of them are multiple offenders. And this, you just can't have this. You should be in prison and have to post bail. If you have committed multiple crimes and are now being charged with more. Okay? Number 7, defund the police. This has been a disaster, and this is on the direct heads of the social justice movement. I hate to say it. Now, we want social justice, but we just want to do it without demonizing the police or demonizing white people. Like all white people are the problem, like critical race theory says. That we're the oppressors and stuff like that. That police are the oppressors. That police are doing this. What's interesting is that, I grew up listening to rap and hip hop in New York City. It's where New York City, where it originated. And so basically, so I listened to that. And when I was growing up and listening to that type of music, every once in a while a rapper would get shot. look at the headlines the last 2 years. Dozens of high-profile rappers shot down by other black people. Okay? It's not the police. The police didn't kill these people. The police didn't kill these rappers. Their own community did. And it's terrible. But I can't think of one case where dozens and dozens of these rappers have been gunned down. Starting with Nipsey. And, so many of these others. And I can't think of a case where a cop shot one of them. That in many cases, they were shot by their own people. And that's the truth. I know that's hard to say. If people are going to try to call me racist, they can. But it's just really a shame. This week, another rapper gunned down, and now they have a video of it that's circulating, and it's just like, wow. But under the last administration, African Americans had low records of unemployment. Their net worths dramatically increased, and this inflation is hurting the poor the worst. And crime hits the low-income areas the worst. Yeah, there's, I'm in New York City, and, every once in a while there's crime in my neighborhoods, but it's the low-income neighborhoods where these crimes are being committed, where these murders are being committed. Defund the police has been a disaster on every single level. On every level. And the Democrats have promoted this, and the Democrats allowed this. And this is total nonsense, and it must be stopped ASAP. The movement of social justice majorly backfired because the people that it was supposed to support and to protect ended up getting hit the hardest by the rising crime rates. This is just, again, just another common sense thing. The defund the police has been a disaster. We got to get rid of these clown politicians and send them into their retirement to never be elected to office ever again. You got number 9, the international blunders all over. This has just been, Afghanistan was the biggest political blunder since the Bay of Pigs invasion. What is that, 50 years ago? Basically withdrawing like that, leaving billions and trillions of dollars worth of military equipment to terrorists. They just left it there. They didn't try to, get rid of it and everything. It was a disaster. Soldiers died. I mean, so Afghanistan is going to go right back to where it was before we were there. And it's just a disaster on every level. And then this sent a message to the rest of the world that Americans are not competent anymore, that our military can't do the job. And so then what this created was more international disasters, which are now spiraling out of control. Look at the disaster in Ukraine. This is just, there shouldn't be war in the modern times that we live in. This is barbaric. And it's not just war because people are being raped, they're just and pillaged, and this is just tragic on every single level. And Russia has never invaded when the Republicans were in office. They invaded on Obama's watch, and they invaded on Joe's watch because they knew that they weren't going to do anything. But they were scared when other people were in office. They weren't going to push that button. And so, as much as the Orange Man had its downside, they weren't acting up like this. As soon as Joe got into office, the Russians invaded, and the rest is history. Now you got North Korea shooting missiles again, and they're shooting just really close to South Korea. You got Iran acting up. And China pushing towards invasion in Taiwan. And you got to say, if they really knew that people were in office that were tough and would bring the full force of the United States military, none of these people would be acting up right now. Even Nicaragua was taking shots at the United States a couple of months ago. I couldn't even believe this. There's just little respect, little confidence for the U.S. military under this leadership. Joe Biden was supposed to bring 50 years of experience, but this guy's been a disaster. Number 9, you have abortion. I know most people feel like this is all Christians talk about, but the truth is that the reason why this is so important is it, at least if you're not partially sensitive towards the issue of protecting the unborn, you're really most likely not going to listen to any other spiritual truths. So it's like a litmus test for other things, right? So basically, if we don't, protect the unborn, and particularly the abortions are tremendously happening in the African American community. So talk about social justice. It could have a whole generation of African American children that would grow up to vote and influence society that they were killed in the womb. They didn't even get a chance. And Democrats were not just trying to overturn abortion laws. Not only that, but they were busy passing late-term abortion laws, almost like right before that baby is about to come out of the womb as a full-term baby. They were signing those laws into effect. It's unbelievable. Both Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden are on the verge of the Catholic Church not offering them communion. They told Nancy Pelosi that she's in danger of being excommunicated. That's how serious this is. So if you're a Christian, you can't vote for this. This is a big deal, and Christians should vote pro-life. Now, if you've had an abortion in the past, I believe there's forgiveness of sins. So this is not a condemnation on people that have made mistakes. I've made mistakes and plenty of things. But this is shown as a sin in the Bible. In Psalm 139, it says, you formed me in my mother's wombs, and you knit me together. And so there's this idea that womb starts in the life. John the Baptist was leaping in his mother's womb, and you're responding. Okay. Next, you have number 11, the Hunter Biden scandal. Now, if the American public knew that this laptop was real, Joe Biden wouldn't even be in office right now. But the media has become liberal and suppressed the story, and it worked in Joe Biden's favor. But had people taken this seriously, nobody would have voted this guy into office. Okay, the Bible talks about standard for leadership, and I understand that is leadership in the church. But I think that we should have those same morals in picking political leaders. Years ago, you would look at someone's marriage and their family, and today, the last couple of governors and mayors of New York City, you don't even have to be married anymore. You could be single. And in Governor Cuomo's case, Andrew Cuomo, basically, so therefore he was going after all these women, and then that creates crises. So, I'm not saying that you have to be married, but it's nice when someone is and they have a stable family. It shows they have character. They have the ability to, show that they really can take care of things. And Joe Biden, in his case, can't really show this. His son might be the most derelict politician's kid in American history, or since John Adams. So basically, yeah, and it's not, I'm glad that Hunter has seemed to turn his life around. I'm not out to get him. I've had problems with alcohol in the past, and I had to get treatment myself, and I'm glad that he's on the right path. But the fact that the things that were on that laptop was so out of control, Joe Biden should have never become the president of the United States. The reason why this is so serious, we're not just picking on Hunter, but the fact is that actually with Hunter being in bed with Ukraine and China, this now becomes a national security risk. So is Joe Biden going to be able to enforce policies that he needs to in the midst of these international crises if he knew that his son was guilty and dealing with these people? It's a conflict of interest. On top of this, Joe Biden said that he never profited or had any knowledge of his son's business dealings. This is crazy. He directly got paid from these business dealings. He knew about them. We know this is true. He lied. And on top of all this, Hunter is investigation for over 30 crimes committed. This is, this is not just one or two or three crimes, or, this is a whole cluster of crimes. And basically, yeah, so just the Hunter Biden scandal on so many levels. Number 12, you got the border crisis. See, listen, let me just break this down into common sense. One of my friends is an attorney, and is an attorney for immigration cases, and she actually teaches at university level immigration. And I sat down and talked with her, and she was a Democrat or liberal, and I sat down with her and I said, listen, just on a micro level, let's just say, right, I had an extra room in my apartment and I want to let someone live in that room, right? I could help one or two people out, right? But on a small level, right, on a micro level, I could help out one or two people. Two would start to get really crowded. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I let 10 people live in my little small room because I want to be compassionate. I want to help people. I'm a Christian, right? No, I couldn't. There's limits. I could possibly let 1 or 2 people live in that extra room I have, right? But and that works on a small level. So if that works on a small level, on a larger level, can we just let everybody in and say, come on in? It doesn't work. And the truth is, who's paying the bill? Because a lot of the people that are coming here are not coming in good situations. They're fleeing for their lives and in different cases. And so we can't just let everybody in. As much as we want to help people, we could only help some people, and there's limits. And, I'm fine with it. If people want to let in everybody into the country, then they should have a separate tax imposed to them. And they should pay an immigration tax. And that, therefore everybody can come into the country. But I'm guessing when people would see the bill for that, they wouldn't want to pay that tax. And the immigration would stop right away. He's not enforcing policies at the border. They're just letting everybody in. And what is it? I'm from New York City, so do I want to see another 9/11? Do I want to see other terrorists come in through the country, through the border? This is going to happen, folks. Unless this is stopped, this is going to happen. Bad people are going to get into this country. And it only has to be a few of them. So as well as drugs coming over the border, fentanyl, and a lot of people are suggesting that other countries are sending it over on purpose to destroy this country. And there's a possibility. Also, many people are suggesting that part of the agenda here is to flood the United States government with so many immigrants that the financial system collapses to cause the end of America. I know that's the extreme side of things, but if you just keep letting millions and millions of people into the country, thousands and thousands of people, eventually the financial situation in America, it will collapse. There are limits to things, folks, and I know that's an uncomfortable reality. I care about people. I care about people that are fleeing, but we can't help everybody, and we shouldn't help everybody, especially in the case of criminals, terrorists, and drug cartels getting things into our border, as well as sex trafficking as well. So number 13 is the radical advancements of LGBTQ rights. Now, listen, let me just say this right off the bat. I'm not an LGBTQ basher. Actually, I teach a Bible study in my church for this community that's tailored fit to them. If they want to try out Christianity, a safe place where there's no judgments provided and we meet them where they're at. No one is stopping you in this country from getting married and having freedom in America and getting a job if you're of the LGBT community. But now this stuff seems to be getting out of our control. It's not about freedom anymore. Now it's let's impose this stuff on everybody else. And that's when I say, stop it right there. I'm not bothering you. I don't care what you do, what two adults do in the privacy of their bedroom. You might have to take that up with God, but I'm not going to stop you. It's just now it's getting shoved down our throats. Now we're introducing this to kids in schools. During the whole Biden thing, then we had this whole Layla Thomas thing in college sports where this woman was, became a national champion. And it's just totally crazy. As I stated before, I was a high school wrestler, made it to the state finals. If I had to wrestle women, which I did in a couple of times, it was over in a few seconds. And men should not be, wrestling women or competing against women, and women shouldn't be competing against men. It's not fair. There's biological facts that you just can't ignore. If you want to call yourself whatever you want to, I'm not going to stop you from calling yourself whatever pronoun you want to use. But God, when it comes to sports, this is just crazy. Imagine the NBA, the male NBA league played the women's league. They would blow them out. The score would be, 200-5. Men and women should not be competing. It's just, yeah. Let me just try to say this. So, I'm not forcing my Christian views on the LGBTQ community. And I don't want them forcing their views on me. You have your ideas, I have mine. I think as Christians, we should love everyone. I want to be very clear. There is no hate here. There is absolutely no hate for the LGBT community. I love you. I think Jesus loves you. Okay? Just because I disagree with some of the values doesn't mean I hate anyone. But I think the advancement of this agenda has gone way too far, especially bringing this into school and teaching this to kids. This is ridiculous, and this is straight up demonic, and it needs to stop. And I'd vote against this stopping. You can get married if you're gay. You can have whatever job you want, and I don't think anyone's going to stop you in America, but them putting this agenda down our throats, I do not like it. So the last thing is that I'm going to say, point number 13, is the gaffe machine that is Joe Biden. This guy can't seem to keep straight sentences. There are times where he doesn't know where he is. There are times when he says that Camilla is the vice president of the United States. There are times where he mentions senators that just recently died in a car accident and asking where they are. I mean, it's clear that this guy has some form of mental atrophy at a minimum. And so, it's also his age. I think we do need to put term limits in there for people, not discriminating, but 80 is 2 years. It's too old to be leading a country. You're too old. And, you don't want Justin Trudeau either. He might be too young, but, yeah, Biden is too old, and I doubt he's mentally fit. So anybody that could vote for this guy a second term, you would really be doing irreparable damages to this country by voting for someone that flat out is incompetent and can't do the job. He had 50 years worth of experience and really can't seem to get sentences out straight and doesn't know where he is and has to rely on a teleprompter. He's too old. He's not fit. We need to get him out of office as quickly as possible. On top of all this, he doesn't even know if he's running again. And it's just like, oh my God, this is just a disaster on so many levels. So real quick, basically, just a quick reminder here for Christians. It's becoming harder and harder to be Christian and to be a Democrat or a liberal at the same time. And I'll give you some quick reasons why. Number one, the end times revolves around a world leader who will rise to power called the Antichrist. He will form a one world government with a one world currency. And when he gets power, he will be good for a little while, but then he will use all that power and turn on people. He will start murdering Christians. He will start murdering anyone who doesn't line up with his agenda. So on a common sense level, right, Americans, that's why a lot of Christians reacted to the pandemic the wrong way. And people are like, wow, this is crazy. Just get a vaccine. It's just a regular vaccine. What's the problem? It was more than that. I think Christians were reacting because we're aware that the Bible preaches about this Antichrist who will come up. He will form a one world government. And there were so many things about that situation which triggered those responses. So it wasn't about, I believe in medical science. I got vaccines before. I don't have a problem with vaccines. I had a problem with the power of government and the overreach of them extending that. And, it got overturned by the Supreme Court. And so on so many levels, we're not resisting a vaccine, but it was more resisting like an Antichrist-like agenda. And I'm not saying the vaccine is the Antichrist, but it's certainly some type of precursor or the precursor to the precursor to the precursor. And so Christians see that this one world government will evolve and it will be have a one world currency. And unless you participate in this system, you will be killed. And so which political party is most likely to align with that system? The Democrats who want more government or the Republicans who want less? The answer is very simple. Very, very simple. The Democrats will align with that government. Number 2, abortion. Like I said, the Catholic Church is possibly on the verge of banning Nancy Pelosi from even worshiping. It's hard to agree with abortion and God at the same time. The LGBTQ agenda. God made people male and female in his image, and when this is changed, that's destroyed. Again, no hate. I don't hate anyone. Christians shouldn't hate anyone. Jesus teaches to love all people. Number 4, hate for your country. They were in the Bible. There was great pride for Israel. The people had pride in their country. They had borders. They had a military. I don't think God wants us to hate our country. And right now, there's being a narrative out there that we should be ashamed of our country, that we should hate our country, that we shouldn't kneel for the flag. It's not the truth. We need to fix the things in the past that we did wrong without despising this country. Anti-law enforcement type mentality creates lawlessness. This is common sense, folks. You can't remove the police from society. And I do believe that there are bad cops out there, but I believe that a vast majority of them are good people who want to make a difference, who want to serve. They're not millionaires. They're not getting paid a lot. They're doing it because they want to help. And there are some bad cops, but not all of them. Democrats are slowly turning on Israel. And the nation of Israel is the centerpiece of the end times. And so the end times will be quicker to come when a coalition of 13 nations are going to rise up with the Antichrist against the nation of Israel. And so we want to have people in office that are pro-Israel, and the Democrats are slowly turning on Israel. And this has never happened in American politics. So you want to usher in the end times, then vote for Democrats who are going to turn on the nation of Israel. Number 7, Democrats are aligning with critical race theory, which is communism. Communism is anti-religion. Communism is anti-God. Guys, if you go into a church that teaches this, it's time to leave. There's no place to be flirting with communist ideology. My last church, which was a big church, well-known church, my pastor fully embraced critical race theory. Get out immediately. We want social justice, but not this way. This is not the way to do it. So basically, yeah. So guys, the election is coming up. Use common sense. The economy is a disaster. Crime is out of control. Mortgage rates are climbing beyond anything we ever seen. You can't afford a house anymore. It's up to 9% almost. This is just ridiculous. It is so clear now than ever that we need to vote Republican. We need to get these Democrats out, and they shouldn't have a chance to get in the White House. Again, we'll take the Senate majority. We'll take as well the House majority. It's time to sweep them and then put common sense policies back in place. This is a disaster on every level. Vote Republican. Get these Democrats out of office, and let's head this country back in a common sense direction again. I hope that you are blessed by this today. Be blessed.